You clutch the torn shawl, its frayed edges whipping in the blizzard's howl. Snow stings your face, each flake a needle against your skin. Your breath catches, heavy with the weight of your unborn child. The wagon train's lanterns faded hours ago, their voices, harsh, accusing, still echo in your ears. "No room for your kind," they spat, casting you out. Your boots sink into the drift, each step a battle against the cold that claws at your bones. You're alone now, on the Nebraska frontier, 1867, where winter kills faster than any man. The wind screams, drowning your sobs. You stumble, your swollen belly slowing you, and collapse against a pine, its bark rough under your trembling hands. Your shawl, hand-stitched by your mother before she died crossing the Platte, offers little warmth. You trace its faded embroidery, a single rose her favorite, wishing for her strength. A historical truth bites harder than the cold. Thousands of settlers died on these trails, their dreams buried under snow or dust. You refuse to be one of them, but your strength wanes. Your vision blurs, the world a white haze. You slide down the tree, snow piling around you. A quirky detail catches your eye. A rabbit, half frozen, darts past. Its tracks a fleeting map in the storm. You almost laugh. Nature's cruelty mirrors your own. Then a faint glow pierces the blizzard. A lantern swaying in the distance. Someone's out there. You force yourself up, heart pounding. The light grows closer, steady despite the wind. A figure emerges, a woman cloaked in furs, her face weathered but kind. "You're not done yet," she says, her voice low, cutting through the storm. She kneels, her lantern casting warmth across your face. Her hands, calloused yet gentle, grip your arm. "Come with me." You hesitate. Trust is a luxury you can't afford. The wagon train taught you that. Men and women you called friends turned you away, fearing your child's father, a man they never knew. Is this widow another trap? Her eyes, though, hold a flicker of pain you recognize, like the rose on your shawl. A subtle twist stirs. She knows more about you than she should. She leads you through the snow, her cabin a shadow against the storm. The door creaks open, revealing a hearth's glow. A quilt, vibrant with patchwork, drapes over a chair, each square a story, sewn with care. This is a settler's home, built from grit and loss. The cultural element of the shawl tightens its grip. It's not just fabric, but a tether to your past, a symbol of survival. You step inside, the warmth stinging your frozen skin. The widow sets the lantern down, its light dancing on the walls. "Rest," she says, pointing to a cot. You sink into it, the quilt's weight grounding you. Your shawl slips, revealing the rose. Her gaze lingers on it too long. "Where'd you get that?" she asks, her voice sharp, then soft. You don't answer. The storm howls outside, but in here, the air feels heavier. You glance at the quilt again, its patterns dizzying. One patch, a faded rose, like your shawl's, catches your breath. A call back to your mother's embroidery, a detail too close to be chance. Your fingers tighten around the shawl. This widow, this cabin, this quilt, they're tied to you somehow. The fire cracks, spitting embers. The widow hums a hymn, soft and mournful, one you heard on the wagon train before they cast you out. Amazing Grace, a settler's staple, sung in church gatherings across the frontier. It soothes you, but her question lingers. Who is she, and why does her quilt echo your mother's handiwork? You close your eyes, the storm's roar fading. The widow's voice carries you into uneasy sleep. Some roads break you, she murmurs, but they lead you home. The cabin's warmth wraps you like a fragile promise, but the widow's eyes hold shadows. You sit on the cot, your shawl damp and heavy, the rose embroidery catching the lantern's glow. The fire cracks, spitting sparks that dance across the rough-hewn walls. The widow, Ellen, moves with quiet purpose, her hands deft as she stirs a pot of stew over the hearth. Her fur-lined cloak hangs by the door, snow melting into puddles beneath it. You clutch your belly, feeling a faint kick, a reminder of life amid the storm's cruelty. Ellen sets a tin mug of broth before you, its steam curls, smelling of sage and hope. "Drink," she says, her voice low, weathered by years on the frontier. You sip, the heat stinging your lips. In 1867, Nebraska winters forced settlers to ration food tightly. Historical records note families surviving on broth and hardtack for weeks. Your hunger gnaws, but her kindness feels like a debt. You glance at the quilt on the chair, its rose patch a silent echo of your shawl. A callback to that fleeting moment in the storm tightens your chest. "Why help me?" you ask, your voice hoarse. Ellen pauses, her spoon still in the pot. "I've seen too many lost to the snow," she says. Her eyes flicker to your shawl, then away. A subtle twist lingers in her glance. She knows something about you, or your past, that you don't. You shift, the cot creaking. The lantern's light reveals her hands, scarred and nimble, stitching a new quilt square by the fire. A quirky detail catches you. Her needle pauses mid-stitch, as if sewing her own secrets into the fabric. The cultural element of the lantern glows stronger now. Settlers relied on such lanterns, their flickering light a lifeline in the endless dark of frontier nights. You trace the shawl's rose again, its threads worn but defiant. "My mother made this," you murmur, half to yourself. Ellen's head snaps up, her eyes sharp. "What was her name?" she asks too quickly. Your heart skips. You hesitate, the name Clara stuck in your throat. Why does it matter to her? Outside, the wind howls, rattling the cabin's shutters. You glance at the door, half expecting the wagon train's men to burst through, their accusations still burning. Your child's a curse. Ellen follows your gaze. "They won't find you here," she says. But her tone wavers. You wonder if she's hiding you from them, or something else. The quilt's rose patch seems to pulse in the firelight, a question you can't yet ask. Ellen hums Amazing Grace again, the hymn weaving through the crackling fire. It's the same tune you heard on the trail, sung by women kneading dough under starlight. The melody soothes, but her earlier question, about your mother, hangs heavy. You sip the broth, its warmth grounding you. A faint creak sounds outside, not the wind. Hoofbeats, distant but steady, your grip tightens on the mug. Ellen doesn't flinch. She sets her needle down, her face unreadable. "Sleep now," she says, pointing to the cot. You lie back, the quilt's weight pressing against you. Its patches tell stories of loss, survival, maybe betrayal. Your shawl slips, the rose embroidery catching the lantern's last flicker. You close your eyes, but sleep feels like a trap. The hoofbeats grow louder, then fade. The fire pops, embers glowing like eyes. Ellen's voice cuts through the dark. "Some kindnesses come with a cost," she whispers. You don't know if she's warning you or herself. The quilt's weight anchors you to the cot, its patches whispering tales you can't yet read. You trace the rose pattern, its threads mirroring your shawl's faded bloom. The fire's glow dims, casting long shadows across Ellen's cabin. Your belly stirs, a soft kick reminding you of the life you carry. The broth's warmth lingers in your chest, but the hoofbeats from last night echo in your mind. You scan the room. Ellen sits by the hearth, stitching another quilt square, her needle flashing in the low light. Her silence feels heavy, like the air before a storm. Morning light seeps through the shutters, pale and cold. You rise, your boots creaking on the pine floor. Ellen glances up, her eyes soft but guarded. "You're stronger than you look," she says, her voice a mix of grit and warmth. You nod, unsure if it's a compliment or a warning. In the 1860s, Nebraska settlers often shared cabins with strangers. Hospitality was survival, but trust was rare. You clutch your shawl, its rose a tether to your mother's memory. Ellen hands you a plate of cornbread, its crust crumbling under your fingers. The scent, earthy and warm, pulls you back to the wagon train, where women baked over open fires, their laughter now a distant ache. A quirky detail catches your eye. Ellen's quilt square, half-stitched, shows a lone pine tree, its branches bent like the one you collapsed against in the storm. A call back to that desperate night tightens your throat. Is she stitching your story or her own? You break the cornbread, its crumbs falling like snow. "Why the rose, Gyobke? You ask, pointing to the quilt. Ellen's needle pauses, her lips tightening. "Some things outlast the frontier," she says, her voice low. The cultural element of the quilt pulses. Settlers poured their grief into every stitch, making blankets that told of lost homes, lost loves. Her answer feels like a door half opened. You want to push, but the air feels fragile. Outside the wind hums, softer now. You glance at the window, half expecting those hoofbeats again. Ellen follows your gaze. "No one's coming yet," she says, but her tone carries an edge. A subtle twist stirs. Her words hint at knowledge she shouldn't have, about the wagon train, about you. Your fingers brush the shawl's rose, its threads worn but fierce. "My mother loved roses," you say, testing her. Ellen's eyes flicker, sharp then soft. "So did mine," she murmurs, returning to her stitching. The fire pops, embers glowing like secrets. You chew the cornbread, its taste grounding you. The quilt's pine square seems to watch you, its branches a map to something unspoken. You wonder about her mother, about the rose, about the hoofbeats fading into the night. She hums again, that same hymn, Amazing Grace, its notes weaving through the cabin's quiet. It's a settler's song sung at funerals and gatherings, a thread of faith in a brutal land. You lean back, the cot creaking. The quilt's warmth feels like a promise, but promises break out here. Your hand rests on your belly, feeling another kick. Ellen sets her needle down, her gaze distant. "The frontier keeps what it wants," she says, her voice a whisper. You don't know if she means you, her, or the secret stitched into the quilt. The cabin's quiet hums with secrets, the quilt's rose patch glowing in the morning light. You sit at Ellen's table, your shawl draped over your shoulders, its frayed rose a silent question. The cornbread's crumbs still cling to your fingers, their earthy taste fading. Your belly shifts, a gentle kick grounding you in the moment. Ellen moves to the hearth, stirring a pot, her hand steady, but her eyes distant. The air feels thick, like the pause before thunder. You want to ask about the rose, about her mother, but her silence holds you back. A faint creak breaks the quiet. Boots on the porch. Your heart jumps. Ellen's head snaps toward the door, her spoon still. "Stay put," she whispers, her voice sharp. She grabs a rifle from the wall, its barrel glinting. In the 1860s, Nebraska settlers kept rifles close. Raids by outlaws or misunderstood tribes were common, especially after harsh winters. You grip the table, your shawl slipping. The rose embroidery catches the light. A callback to the quilt's matching pattern, stirring unease. Ellen cracks the door, peering out. Cold air seeps in, chilling your skin. "Who's there?" she calls. Her tone steady but laced with warning. No answer. The wind carries a low whistle, not quite human. A quirky detail catches you. A single hawk feather, stuck in the door frame, sways in the breeze. It feels like a sign, but of what? You remember the rabbit's tracks in the storm, nature's hints, never clear. She shuts the door, bolting it. "Just the wind," she says, but her grip on the rifle tightens. You don't believe her. The hoofbeats from last night linger in your mind, a rhythm of pursuit. A subtle twist coils tighter. Ellen's calm feels forced, like she's hiding who or what is out there. You glance at the quilt, its pine and rose patches seeming to whisper. Is she protecting you or keeping you here? "Why'd they throw you out?" Ellen asks, setting the rifle down. Her question cuts, sudden and sharp. You hesitate, the wagon train's accusations burning. Your child's father was trouble. You don't speak his name. Micah, a drifter they despised. "They didn't trust me," you say, your voice low. Her eyes soften, but something flickers. Recognition, maybe. The cultural element of the settler's table grounds the scene. Rough-hewn, scarred from years of use, it holds stories of shared meals, broken dreams. You trace its knots, feeling Micah's absence. "You ever lose someone?" you ask. Ellen pauses, her hand still. "Everyone does out here," she says, her voice heavy. She points to the quilt. "That's why I stitch." The hawk feather sways again as wind rattles the shutters. You hear it now, a faint hoofbeat, closer than before. Ellen doesn't react, but her eyes dart to the door. She hums Amazing Grace, softer now, the hymn a fragile shield. You clutch your shawl, its rose a tether to your mother, to survival. The feather feels like a warning, but from whom? Ellen pours you more broth, her hands steady. "Rest while you can," she says, her voice calm but firm. You sip, the sage warming your throat. The quilt's patches seem to shift in the light, telling a story you're not ready to hear. The hoofbeats fade, but the air grows heavier. The fire crackles, embers glowing like eyes in the dark. Ellen's voice cuts through. "Some doors stay shut for a reason," she murmurs. You wonder if she means the cabin or her heart. The cabin's air grows taut. The hoofbeats echo lingering like a ghost in your ears. You sit at the scarred table, your shawl's rose embroidery catching the flicker of Ellen's lantern. Your belly shifts, a sharp kick stealing your breath. The quilt on the chair seems to watch you, its pine and rose patches stitching a story you can't unravel. Ellen stands by the hearth, her rifle now propped against the wall, her hands busy with a kettle. Her calm feels like a mask, and the hawk feather in the doorframe sways, a silent warning. You glance outside, the noon sun muted by clouds. The Nebraska frontier in 1867 was a battleground. Settlers and Sioux clashed over land, each side misreading the other's intent. You clutch your shawl, its threads a lifeline to your mother's memory. The hoofbeats from last night, sharp and deliberate, replay in your mind. A call back to that distant rhythm tightens your chest. Are they coming for you or for Ellen? "Who's out there?" you ask, your voice low. Ellen pours tea, her hand steady, but her eyes evasive. Drifters, maybe, she says, setting a chipped mug before you. The tea smells of wild mint, a quirky detail that pulls you back to the wagon train, where women brewed it to soothe nerves. You sip, the warmth easing your ache, but her answer feels hollow. The cultural element of the rifle leans heavy in the room. Settlers kept such weapons close, not just for hunting, but for survival against unseen threats. You eye it, wondering if you could reach it in time. Ellen catches your glance. "You don't need that," she says, her tone soft but firm. A subtle twist coils. Her reassurance feels like a barrier keeping you from the truth. Is she your savior or your captor? You trace the table's scars, each one a story of hardship. "Why'd you take me in?" you ask, your voice barely a whisper. Ellen pauses, her kettle steaming. "I know what it's like to be cast out," she says, her eyes on the quilt. Her words carry weight, hinting at a past she hasn't shared. You think of the wagon train, their voices condemning you for Micah's shadow. A faint thud outside breaks the moment. Not hoofbeats, a branch maybe, snapping under snow. You flinch, your hand on your belly. Ellen doesn't move, but her fingers tighten on the kettle. "Just the wind," she says, but her voice wavers. You don't believe her. The hawk feather sways again, its quill catching the light. You remember the Sioux tales your mother told. Feathers carried messages from spirits. Is this one a warning or a guide? Ellen hums Amazing Grace, the hymn weaving through the cabin's quiet. Its notes, sung at settler funerals, feel like a prayer for the living. You sip the tea, its mint sharp on your tongue. The quilt's rose patch seems to pulse, a question you can't ask yet. Your shawl slips, its embroidery a mirror to the quilt's secrets. The fire pops, embers glowing like stars. Ellen's voice cuts through, soft and low. "Some shadows follow you forever," she murmurs. You don't know if she means the hoofbeats or something deeper. The cabin's warmth feels fragile. The hawk feathers sway, a pulse in the quiet. You grip the chipped mug, its mint tea cooling in your hands. Your shawl drapes over your shoulders, the rose embroidery catching the lantern's fading glow. Ellen sits across from you, her eyes tracing the quilt's patches, pine, rose, a story unspoken. Your belly stirs, a soft kick anchoring you to the moment. The hoofbeats from last night, the thud outside, linger like a threat you can't name. You want to trust Ellen, but her silences cut deeper than the cold. You shift on the chair, the table scars rough under your fingers. In the 1860s, Nebraska settlers often faced impossible choices: trust a stranger or face the wilderness alone. You feel that choice now, your hand brushing your shawl. Its rose, a call back to the quilt's matching patch, tightens the knot in your chest. Why does her quilt mirror your mother's work? You want to ask, but the air feels brittle, ready to crack. Ellen rises, moving to the window. She peers through the shutters, her breath fogging the glass. "No one's out there," she says. But her voice wavers, like she's convincing herself. A quirky detail catches you. Her fingers, calloused from years of stitching, tremble slightly as she grips the sill. Is she afraid or hiding something? A subtle twist coils tighter. Her fear feels too personal, tied to you, to the wagon train's betrayal. You set the mug down, its clink loud in the stillness. "Why'd you ask about my mother?" you say, your voice steady despite the ache. Ellen freezes, her back to you. The cultural element of the settler's Bible rests on a shelf, its leather cover worn from years of prayer. Settlers clung to such books, seeking solace in a brutal land. Her name was Clara. you add, testing her. Ellen turns, her eyes sharp, then soft. "Clara," she repeats, her voice barely a whisper. She steps to the quilt, tracing the rose patch. "I knew a Clara once," she says, her words heavy with something unspoken. Your heart races. The rose, the quilt, her reaction, they're pieces of a puzzle you can't solve. Is she tied to your mother, to your past? A low creak sounds outside. Not the wind, not a branch. Hoofbeats, slow and deliberate, circle the cabin. You stand, your hand on your belly, feeling another kick. Ellen grabs the rifle, her movements swift. "Stay back," she says, her voice low but firm. The hawk feather in the doorframe trembles, a Sioux sign, maybe, of spirits watching. You remember your mother's stories. Feathers marked paths, warnings, or promises. Ellen cracks the door, rifle raised. Cold air rushes in, stinging your face. You glimpse a shadow on the ridge, a rider, motionless, watching. Ellen shuts the door, bolting it. "Drifters," she mutters, but her eyes betray doubt. You clutch your shawl, its rose a fragile shield. The hymn Amazing Grace hums in your memory, a settler's prayer now laced with fear. The fire crackles, embers glowing like secrets. Ellen's voice cuts through, soft but heavy. "Some names carry ghosts," she murmurs. You don't know if she means your mother or the rider outside. The cabin's air thickens, the bolted door a flimsy shield against the rider outside. You stand frozen, your shawl's rose embroidery catching the lantern's flicker. Your belly tightens, a sharp kick grounding you in the moment. Ellen grips the rifle, her eyes locked on the door, her breath shallow. The hoofbeats fade, but their echo lingers. A pulse in the silence. The hawk feather sways in the doorframe, its quill glinting like a warning. You want to trust Ellen, but her words, "Some names carry ghosts," hang heavy, stirring doubts about her. About your mother, about the quilt's rose patch mirroring your shawl. You sink back onto the chair, the table's scars rough under your palms. In the 1860s, Nebraska settlers often hid letters in quilts or floorboards, secret messages to kin or warnings of danger. You glance at the quilt, its pine and rose patches seeming to pulse. A callback to Ellen's sharp reaction to your mother's name, Clara, twists your gut. Is the quilt hiding something? You lean forward, your fingers brushing the fabric, searching for answers. Ellen sets the rifle down, her hands trembling. "No one's coming yet," she says, her voice low but unsteady. A quirky detail catches you. A loose thread dangles from the quilt's rose patch, as if she stopped stitching mid-secret. You tug it gently, and a folded paper slips free, a letter, its edges yellowed. Your heart races. A subtle twist unfurls. This letter, hidden in the quilt, holds a name that could unravel everything. You unfold it, the paper crackling. The ink is faded, but one word stands out. Clara, your mother's name. You gasp, the shawl slipping from your shoulders. Ellen turns her eyes wide. "Where'd you find that?" she snaps, her voice sharp. The cultural element of the settler's letter grounds the moment. Such notes were lifelines, carrying love or betrayal across the frontier. You clutch the paper, its weight heavier than the rifle. "What's this?" you ask, your voice shaking. Ellen steps closer, her face a mix of fear and grief. "Something I should have burned," she says, her words barely audible. The letter mentions a wagon train, a betrayal, a child left behind. Your child kicks again as if sensing the truth. Is this about you? About your mother, or something Ellen's hiding? Outside the wind hums, rattling the shutters. The hawk feather trembles, a Sioux sign of spirits watching, maybe guiding. You remember your mother's tales. Letters could bind families or break them. Ellen reaches for the letter, but you pull back. "Tell me," you say, your voice firm. She hesitates, her eyes on the quilt's rose. "Not yet," she murmurs, turning away. The fire pops, embers glowing like eyes. The hymn, "Amazing Grace," echoes in your mind, a settler's prayer now laced with secrets. You fold the letter, tucking it into your shawl. The rose embroidery feels alive, a tether to a past you don't fully know. Ellen's voice cuts through, soft but heavy. "Some truths cut deeper than knives," she whispers. You don't know if she's warning you or begging forgiveness. The letter's weight burns in your shawl, its faded ink a silent scream of secrets. You sit at the table, the quilt's rose patch staring back, mirroring your shawl's embroidery. Your belly aches, a dull kick reminding you of the life you carry. Ellen stands by the hearth, her back to you, stirring a pot with slow, deliberate motions. The cabin's air feels heavy, the hawk feather in the doorframe still, as if holding its breath. The rider's shadow on the ridge lingers in your mind, a threat you can't name. Clara's name in the letter, your mother's, twists your heart like a knife. You glance out the window, the noon sun casting a harsh glare over the Nebraska snow. In the 1860s, Sioux warriors often watched settlers from afar, their presence mistaken for hostility when it was caution. You wonder about the rider, his silhouette sharp against the ridge. A call back to the hoofbeats tightens your chest. Were they watching you? Or Ellen? You clutch the letter, its paper crinkling. Ellen hasn't mentioned it since you found it, but her silence speaks louder than words. A faint rustle outside breaks the quiet. Not hoofbeats, a soft step, deliberate. Ellen freezes, her spoon still. You notice a quirky detail. A small leather pouch tied with a bead hangs from her belt. A Sioux medicine bag out of place in the settler's cabin. Your breath catches. A subtle twist unfurls. Ellen's connection to the Sioux hints at a past she's buried, tied to the letter, to you. You rise, your boots creaking on the floor. "Who's out there?" you ask, your voice low but firm. Ellen turns, her eyes sharp. "No one you need to fear," she says, but her hand brushes the medicine bag, betraying her calm. The cultural element of the Sioux medicine bag grounds the moment. Such pouches held sacred items, tokens of protection or memory. You wonder what hers holds and why she carries it. The rustle grows louder, closer. Ellen grabs the rifle, her movement swift. "Stay here," she says, heading for the door. You step forward, the letter in your shawl, a burning weight. "Tell me about Clara," you say, your voice steady despite the fear. She pauses, her hand on the bolt. "Not now," she snaps, but her eyes flicker with something, guilt maybe. The door creaks open, cold air rushing in. A figure stands on the ridge, a Sioux warrior, his war bonnet catching the sun. He raises a hand, not in threat, but in signal. Ellen lowers the rifle, her shoulders easing. "He's no enemy," she murmurs, almost to herself. You clutch the letter, its words, Clara, betrayal, child, echoing. The medicine bag sways as she steps outside, leaving you in the cabin's heavy quiet. The fire crackles, embers glowing like questions. The quilt's rose seems to watch you, its threads weaving a truth you're not ready to face. Amazing Grace hums in your memory, a settler's hymn now tangled with Sioux secrets. Ellen's voice drifts back, soft through the open door. Some eyes see more than you know, she says. You don't know if she means the warrior or herself. The cabin door hangs open, cold air curling in like a warning. You clutch the letter, its faded ink. Clara, betrayal, child, searing your palm through the shawl. The quilt's rose patch glares from the chair, its threads a mirror to your mother's embroidery. Your belly tightens, a sharp kick grounding you as the Sioux warrior silhouette fades from the ridge. Ellen stands just outside, her rifle lowered, the Sioux medicine bag swinging from her belt. Her words, "He's no enemy," echo, but they don't soothe. The fire's glow flickers, casting shadows that dance like ghosts across the walls. You step toward the door, your boots heavy on the pine floor. In the 1860s, Nebraska settlers and Sioux often clashed over misunderstandings. Trade disputes or stolen land sparked violence, though some sought peace. You wonder about the warrior, his raised hand a signal you can't read. A callback to the letter's weight in your shawl stirs unease. Does Ellen's connection to the Sioux tie to your mother, to you? You grip the table, its scars rough under your fingers, a settler's relic of survival. Ellen turns, her face half lit by the noon sun. "He's gone," she says, her voice low but strained. A quirky detail catches you. Her medicine bag's beads clink softly, a sound like distant rain, out of place in her settler's world. A subtle twist deepens. Her ease with the warrior, her guarded words about Clara, hint at a betrayal she's hiding, one that might involve you. You hold up the letter, your hand trembling. "This says Clara," you say, your voice steady despite the ache. "My mother." What do you know? Ellen's eyes widen, then drop to the medicine bag. "I told you, I knew a Clara," she says, stepping inside. The cultural element of the settler's hymn rises. She hums Amazing Grace, its notes a fragile thread in the tense air. Settlers sang it to mourn, to hope, to bind their fractured lives. "I deserve the truth," you press, the letter crinkling. Ellen shuts the door, the hawk feather trembling in its frame. "The truth isn't kind," she says, her voice breaking. She moves to the quilt, her fingers tracing the rose patch. "Clara was on a wagon train, like you. She made choices for a child." Your heart stops. The letter's words, "child left behind," burn brighter. Is that child you or someone else? A faint hoofbeat sounds outside, then stops. You flinch, your hand on your belly. Ellen doesn't react, but her medicine bag sways, its beads catching the light. You remember your mother's stories. Sioux pouches held memories, promises, or curses. What does Ellen's hold? She steps closer, her eyes soft but heavy. "Some things are better left buried," she says, her voice a whisper. The fire pops, embers glowing like secrets. The quilt's rose seems to pulse, tying you to a past you don't understand. You tuck the letter deeper into your shawl, its weight a vow to uncover the truth. Amazing Grace lingers, a hymn now laced with betrayal. Ellen's voice cuts through, soft but sharp. "Some debts demand blood," she murmurs. You don't know if she means your mother, the warrior, or herself. The cabin's air grows heavy, the letters weight in your shawl, a burning secret. You stand by the table, its scarred wood, grounding you as your belly shifts with a soft kick. The quilt's rose patch stares from the chair, its threads echoing your mother's embroidery. Ellen sits by the hearth, her Sioux medicine bag still, its beads glinting in the firelight. Her words, "Some debts demand blood," hang like smoke, curling around the truth you're chasing. The hawk feather in the doorframe sways, a silent pulse in the quiet. Outside, the noon sun fades behind clouds. and the ridge lies empty, but the warrior's presence lingers. You clutch the letter. It's ink, Clara, betrayal, child, a map to a past you don't know. In the 1860s, Nebraska settlers and Sioux sometimes forged uneasy alliances, trading furs or food to survive harsh winters. You wonder if Ellen's medicine bag ties her to the warrior, to a pact you can't see. A callback to her sharp reaction to Clara's name twists your gut. She knows more than she's saying. About your mother, about the letter, about you. Ellen rises, her hand steady as she stokes the fire. "We need to move soon," she says, her voice low but urgent. A quirky detail catches you. Her fingers brush the medicine bag, as if seeking strength from its hidden contents. A subtle twist tightens. Her urgency feels like a plan, one that might not include your safety. You step back, the table's edge pressing into your thighs. "Why move, Hadpam?" you ask, your voice sharp. Ellen glances at the door, then at you. "The ridge isn't safe," she says, her eyes flickering to the quilt's rose. The cultural element of the Sioux fire ritual grounds the moment. Fires were sacred, spaces for truth or vows. You notice the hearth's flames, how they mirror the glow in Ellen's eyes. Is she preparing for a ritual or a reckoning? You hold the letter up, its paper trembling. "This says my mother betrayed someone, but," you say, your voice steady despite the fear. Ellen's face hardens, then softens. "Clara made choices to protect what mattered," she says, her words heavy. "Sometimes that meant leaving things behind." Your heart races. The letter's words, "child left behind," pulse louder. Was that child you? Or someone tied to Ellen? A low thud sounds outside. Not hoofbeats. A footstep, deliberate. You flinch, your hand on your belly. Ellen grabs the rifle, her movement swift. "Stay here," she says, heading for the door. You step forward, the letter a burning weight. "No more secrets," you say, your voice firm. She pauses, her hand on the bolt, the medicine bag swaying. The fire crackles, its warmth a fragile shield. You glimpse the ridge through the window. A shadow moves, too quick to read. The quilt's rose seems to watch, its threads weaving a truth you're close to touching. Amazing grace hums in your memory, a settler's hymn, now tangled with Sioux vows. Ellen's voice cuts through, soft but heavy. "Some fires burn to hide the truth," she murmurs. You don't know if she means the hearth or the past you share. The cabin's fire casts flickering shadows. The quilt's rose patch glowing like a silent vow. You clutch the letter, its words, Clara, betrayal, child, a weight heavier than your swollen belly. Ellen stands by the door, her Sioux medicine bag swaying, the rifle in her hand steady but tense. The thud outside lingers in your ears, a footstep too deliberate to be the wind. Your shawl's rose embroidery brushes your fingers, a tether to your mother's memory. The hawk feather in the doorframe stills, as if the frontier itself holds its breath. You want answers, but Ellen's silence feels like a wall. You step closer, the pine floor creaking under your boots. In the 1860s, Sioux warriors often offered trade or parley to settlers, their gestures misread as threats in tense times. You think of the warrior on the ridge, his raised hand, peace or warning. A call back to the letter's mention of betrayal twists your gut. Is Ellen's connection to the Sioux tied to your mother's choices? You grip the letter, its paper worn but fierce, like the truth you're chasing. Ellen glances at you, her eyes sharp. "We can't stay," she says, her voice low. A quirky detail catches you. Her medicine bag's beads clink. a soft rhythm like a prayer. A subtle twist deepens. Her urgency, her Sioux ties, suggest she's running from something or someone connected to you. You point to the letter. This says Clara left a child, you say, your voice steady despite the ache. Was it me? Ellen's face softens, her rifle lowering slightly. Clara loved fiercely, she says, her words heavy. Sometimes love means letting go. The cultural element of the Sioux sacred arrow flashes in your mind. Your mother told you such arrows sealed promises or marked enemies. You notice a glint under Ellen's cloak, a small arrowhead tied to her belt. Is it a token of peace or a weapon? A shadow moves outside, quick and silent. You flinch, your hand on your belly, feeling a kick. Ellen steps to the window, peering through the shutters. He's back, she murmurs, her voice barely audible. The warrior you assume. She turns to you, her eyes pleading. Trust me, she says, gripping the whale. He wants to help. But her medicine bag sways. Its beads catching the firelight, and you wonder if trust is a trap. You tuck the letter into your shawl, its weight a vow to uncover the truth. The quilt's rose seems to pulse, tying you to Ellen, to Clara, to a past you don't fully grasp. Amazing Grace hums in your memory, a settler's hymn, now laced with Sioux promises. The fire crackles, embers glowing like questions unanswered. Ellen opens the door, cold air rushing in. The warrior stands on the ridge, his silhouette sharp. He holds a sacred arrow, raised like an offer. Ellen nods as if sealing a pact. Her voice cuts through, soft but heavy. Some promises bind you forever, she murmurs. You don't know if she means the warrior or the letter's secrets. The cabin door swings wide, cold air biting your face as the warrior's silhouette looms on the ridge. You clutch your shawl, the letter's weight, Clara, betrayal, child, burning against your chest. Your belly tightens, a fierce kick grounding you in the moment. Ellen stands in the doorway, her Sioux medicine bag swaying, the rifle still in her hands. The sacred arrow in the warrior's grip glints, a promise or a threat you can't read. The quilt's rose patch glows behind you, its threads echoing your shawl's embroidery, tying you to a past that feels closer with every breath. You step forward, the pine floor creaking under your boots. In the 1860s, Nebraska's frontier saw blood spilled over land disputes. Settlers and Sioux clashed, but some warriors sought peace through parley. The warrior's raised arrow feels like such a gesture, but your gut twists. A call back to Ellen's words, some promises bind you forever, stirs unease. Is her pact with the warrior tied to the letter, to your mother? You grip the shawl, its rose a fragile shield. Ellen glances back, her eyes sharp. He's here to talk, she says, her voice low but tense. A quirky detail catches you. The warrior's war bonnet sways, its feathers dancing like the hawk feather in the doorframe. A subtle twist coils. Ellen's ease with the Sioux, her medicine bag, her arrowhead. They suggest she's more than a settler widow. You point to the letter, your hand trembling. Does he know about Clara? You ask, your voice cutting through the wind. Ellen's face hardens, then softens. He knows enough, she says, stepping outside. The cultural element of the settler's rifle grounds the moment. Such weapons were lifelines, often the only defense against a frontier's dangers. You eye it, wondering if you could grab it, if trust fails. The warrior steps closer, his arrow lowered, his eyes scanning you. You carry a burden, he says, his voice deep, accented. Your belly kicks again, as if answering. You hold the letter tight, its words a burning question. What do you want? You ask, your voice steady despite the fear. The warrior's gaze shifts to Ellen, then back to you. To right a wrong, he says, his arrow glinting. Your heart races. The letter's mention of a child left behind pulses louder. Is it you, or someone tied to them both? Ellen's medicine bag clinks. It speeds a faint prayer in the silence. The wind howls, rattling the cabin shutters. The quilt's rose seems to watch, its threads weaving a truth you're close to touching. Amazing Grace hums in your memory. A settler's hymn now tangled with Sioux vows. You step closer to Ellen, the letter a vow of your own. The warrior raises his arrow again, not in threat, but in offering. The fire inside crackles, embers glowing like secrets. Ellen's voice drifts back, soft but heavy. Some wrongs demand blood to heal, she murmurs. You don't know if she means the warrior's offer or the letter's truth. The warrior's sacred arrow catches the fading light, its feathers trembling in the wind. You stand in the cabin's doorway, your shawl's rose embroidery pressing against the letter. Clara, betrayal, child. A truth burning in your grip. Your belly aches, a sharp kick anchoring you as Ellen steps toward the warrior, her Sioux medicine bag swaying. The quilt inside glows faintly, its rose patch a silent echo of your shawl. The ridge looms empty now, but the warrior's words, to right a wrong, hang heavy like the Nebraska air before a storm. You clutch the letter, its paper worn but fierce. In the 1860s, Sioux and settlers sometimes forged fragile truces, sharing resources to survive brutal winters. The warrior's arrow feels like such a truce, but your gut twists. A call back to Ellen's medicine bag, its beads clinking like a prayer, stirs doubt. Is she tied to the warrior's offer, to your mother's betrayal? You step forward, the snow crunching under your boots. The hawk feather in the doorframe sways, a Sioux sign of spirits watching. Ellen glances back, her eyes sharp. He's not your enemy, she says, her voice low but strained. A quirky detail catches you. The warrior's moccasins, beaded with a rose pattern, mirror the quilt's design. A subtle twist unfurls. This rose, threading through your shawl, the quilt, now his moccasins, binds you all in a story you don't fully grasp. You point to the letter, your voice steady. Does this wrong involve Clara, you ask, your words cutting through the wind? The warrior's eyes meet yours, dark and steady. Clara's choices broke many, he says, his arrow lowering. Ellen flinches, her medicine bag still. The cultural element of the settler's quilt pulses inside. Its patches held stories of loss, stitched by women who survived betrayal. You think of the letter's words, child left behind. Was I that child? You press, your voice trembling. Ellen steps closer, her face pale. Clara was my sister, she whispers, her voice breaking. Your heart stops. The letter's weight doubles, the rose on your shawl a burning truth. Ellen, your sister? The warrior nods as if he knew. She left you to protect you, he says, his voice heavy. Your belly kicks, a reminder of your own child, your own choices. A distant hoofbeat sounds, then fades. You glance at the ridge, empty but watchful. The warrior raises his arrow again, a gesture of peace. We share this wound, he says, his eyes on Ellen. You clutch the shawl, its rose a tether to a sister you never knew. Amazing Grace hums in your memory, a hymn now laced with blood ties. The fire inside crackles, its warmth a distant comfort. Ellen's voice cuts through, soft but raw. Some truths tear you apart to make you whole, she murmurs. You don't know if she's speaking to you, the warrior, or the ghosts of your shared past. The revelation burns hotter than the letter in your shawl. Ellen, your sister, bound by Clara's blood. You stand in the snow, the warrior's sacred arrow glinting as he lowers it, his eyes steady on you both. Your belly throbs, a fierce kick anchoring you to the moment. The cabin's quilt looms in your mind, its rose patch a mirror to your shawl's embroidery, now a symbol of a family torn apart. The hawk feather in the doorframe sways, a Sioux sign of spirits watching, maybe judging. Ellen's medicine bag clinks softly, its beads catching the fading light. The ridge lies empty, but the hoofbeat's echo lingers, a pulse of danger. You grip the letter, its words, Clara, betrayal, child, now a map to your own past. In the 1860s, Nebraska's frontier saw families fractured by survival. Mothers left children to protect them from starvation or raids. A callback to Ellen's confession, "Clara was my sister," twists your heart. You stare at her, her face a mix of grief and resolve. "Why didn't you tell me?" you ask, your voice raw, cutting through the wind. Ellen steps closer, her medicine bag swaying. "I thought you were lost forever," she says, her voice breaking. A quirky detail catches you. Her hands, scarred from stitching, tremble as they clutch her cloak, as if holding back years of pain. A subtle twist emerges. The warrior's presence isn't random. He's here for you, for Ellen, for a wrong tied to Clara's choices. You glance at him, his moccasins rose pattern echoing the quilt, your shawl. The warrior speaks, his voice low. "Your mother saved me once," he says, his arrow pointing to the ground. "Now I guard her daughters." The cultural element of the Sioux dream catcher flashes in your mind. Your mother told you they caught nightmares, guiding souls to safety. You notice a small dream catcher tied to his belt, its feathers swaying. Is he your protector or a reminder of Clara's debts? A hoofbeat sounds, closer now. You flinch, your hand on your belly, feeling another kick. Ellen grabs her rifle, her eyes scanning the ridge. "They're coming," she says, her voice sharp. The wagon trains men, you assume, those who cast you out fearing your child's father. You clutch the shawl, its rose a vow to protect your own child. The warrior steps forward, his arrow raised, not in threat, but in readiness. You face Ellen, the letter crinkling. "What did Clara do, you ask, your voice steady despite the fear. Her eyes meet yours, heavy with guilt. "She chose life over love," she says, her words a wound. The dream catcher sways, a Sioux promise in a settler's world. Amazing grace hums in your memory, its notes now a bridge between you and Ellen. The fire inside crackles, its warmth a distant echo. Ellen's voice cuts through, soft but fierce. "Some battles choose you," she murmurs. You don't know if she means the riders or the truth binding you both. The hoofbeats grow louder, a thunder closing in on the cabin's fragile walls. You stand in the snow, your shawl's rose embroidery pressing against the letter. Clara, betrayal, child. Now a truth tying you to Ellen, your sister. Your belly aches, a final kick grounding you as the warrior grips his sacred arrow, his dream catcher swaying in the wind. Ellen stands beside you, her rifle raised, her Sioux medicine bag still against her cloak. The quilt inside the cabin, its rose patch a mirror to your shawl, feels like a vow you're only beginning to understand. The hawk feather in the doorframe trembles, a Sioux sign of spirits guiding you to this moment. You scan the ridge where shadows move, riders, 3 of them, their coats dark against the snow. In the 1860s, Nebraska's frontier was a crucible. Settlers hunted those they blamed for misfortune, often women like you, cast out for unseen sins. A callback to the wagon train's accusations, your child's a curse, burns your chest. You clutch the shawl, its rose a tether to Clara, to Ellen, to survival. The warrior steps forward, his arrow lowered, but ready. "They seek you," he says, his voice steady. Ellen's eyes meet yours, raw with grief. "Stay behind me," she says, her rifle steady. A quirky detail catches you. Her medicine bag's beads glint, reflecting the snow's pale light, as if carrying Clara's spirit. The cultural element of the settler's journal lingers in your mind. Women wrote their truths in secret, hiding them in cabins like this. You think of the letter, its words a map to your shared past. The riders halt, their leader dismounting. His voice cuts through the wind. "She's ours," he says, pointing at you. You recognize him, Jonas, from the wagon train, the one who spat your exile. A subtle twist resolves. The warrior's presence, Ellen's confession, point to a shared wound, Clara's choice to save you, to leave Ellen, to trust the Sioux. You step forward, your voice fierce. "I'm no one's," Yve, your hand on your belly. The warrior raises his arrow, a gesture of peace turned warning. "Her fight is mine," he says, his dream catcher swaying. Ellen lowers her rifle, her eyes on you. "And mine," she whispers, her voice breaking. The riders hesitate, their horses stamping. You clutch the letter, its truth a shield. Clara's betrayal was love. She left you to the Sioux, to safety, and Ellen to the frontier's mercy. The wind softens, the snow falling gentle now. Jonas backs away, his men following. The warrior nods, his arrow lowered. You turn to Ellen, your sister, her face etched with years of loss. "We're enough," you say, your voice steady. She smiles, faint but real. The quilt's rose, the shawl's embroidery, the dream catcher, they bind you to a new dawn. Amazing Grace hums in your heart, a hymn of settlers and Sioux, of sisters reunited. The fire inside fades, its embers glowing soft. Ellen's voice drifts, a whisper in the snow. "Some endings are just beginnings," she murmurs. You step toward the cabin, carrying your child, your truth, your home.